Hey, what's up, friends? It's B Chambers and the X-Man here from Alloy 7 Video, and we're going to do something a little different for today's review of Sonic Generations. So he came to me, the X-Man that is, and asked me if he could do a review for this game because he likes it very much. And I said, absolutely, we're going to do kind of an abbreviated version of our category review, and we're going to add a category at the end that's kind of a message to the parents that I'll talk about. But for the most part, we're going to let X-Man run the show here. How you doing, X-Man? Everything's good?
Mm-hmm.
All righty then.
I've been waiting for this all summer.
All summer. Okay, so we're going to start with the bottom line up front. And what I got from you was that you felt that Sonic Generations was a really cool game that mixes new school flavor and attributes, but also mixes that with the old school Sonic games that you grew up playing when you were much younger. And I found it interesting that you had such an affinity for Sonic games because I've never really liked them. But in playing them with you, I have found them somewhat enjoyable. So our first category that we always talk about when we do our reviews, or the first category that we're going to talk about for today, is what I call, or what we call, the Action Junkies category. And there were a couple of things that you had said that you enjoyed about the action in the game. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So what were some of the things that you said you enjoyed when it came to the action?
Let's see. New enemies that I never battled before.
New enemies. There's varied enemies in the game, unique enemies that you can battle. Got it.
Yes.
You also said something about the speed of the game.
Yes, and I like it that Sonic can do a speed boost.
Can do a speed boost, and so you also seem to enjoy the speed of the platforming and that it moves quite a bit faster than, say, a Mario type game. And it requires you to kind of be quick on your toes and quick on your mind when you're thinking and trying to figure out what you're going to do on the level. You also mentioned that you liked, correct me if I'm wrong, that it pays homage to the old school Sonic games by giving you access to what? What did the game give you access to?
It gave me access from Sonic Unleashed and the Sonic the Hedgehog game that I never played before.
So the old school games, you can play some of those levels. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, and the Chrysler City level was very difficult.
Was very difficult. So for the most part, you found the game to be fair with difficulty, but when you got to Crisis City, it had kind of a difficulty spike that made the game challenging to enjoy just a little bit.
Yeah, and the thing I didn't like clearly about Crisis City was all the lava traps.
All the lava traps. Okay, so as it relates to the story, can you tell us a little bit about the story of Sonic Generations? Because this game doesn't just have the platforming piece. It actually has a narrative to it that explains why Sonic from the old school is meeting up with Sonic from the new school. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
They're traveling time and space.
Traveling through time and space. And that's what they use to tie the two worlds together? That both the old and the new Sonic have to work together to beat the bad guys?
Yes.
To beat Robotnik and what's the other guy's name?
Dr. Eggman.
Dr. Eggman. Got it. Okay. So you had also mentioned some things that you liked about the sound in the game. The soundtrack. This would fall under the category that we call audio files. So what was it that you liked about the sound and with the music?
That you can switch the music in the levels.
Okay, so it has a customizable soundtrack and that you can pick which songs you want to hear on which levels.
Yes, and it's the same thing as the levels, and it's also because the songs are from other Sonic games too.
So they bring the songs from the old school Sonic games just like they bring the levels. Excellent. So on to the graphics, or the category that we call the visualist category. You mentioned something very significant that you liked about the visuals. What was it that you liked about the visuals in the game?
I liked all the art in the game.
All the art in the game. So one of the things that I noticed, just to give a quick note to agree with you, one of the things I actually really like about Sonic games is their use of color. Like Sonic games are very, very bright. The artwork is very, like the greens are really, really bright green and the blues are really, really bright. And I've always appreciated that Sonic games are really pretty. Would you say you agree with that?
Yes, and the reason why the levels were all white at first because Eggman erased all the time and space, and Sonic had to bring it all.
You had to bring it all back.
So until and then he got to go back to his world.
Had to go back to his world. So the old Sonic came and helped, and then he went back to the world where he came from. So one note that I'd like to add about the graphics, slightly on the negative side, is that especially now that I've played a lot of newer PC games and a lot of newer games like on PS4, you can see just graphically when Sonic Generations tries to do like the 3D cutscenes that these games are very dated. Like the graphic systems just aren't. You can tell you're playing a system that's 10 years old. But overall, I felt like the artwork, and that's just in the cutscenes. Inside the game, I think the levels were very pretty and very well scripted in terms of how they displayed the art. Now, to give a quick note to parents, this is the section where I want to address those of you who may be parents that have kids that are playing games. Sonic Generations is rated E for everyone by the ESRB, the folks that actually rate games. But what that really means for you guys is that there is cartoon violence in the game, but I've played a good amount of the game with my son here, the X-Man, and I can say that it's probably safe for kids of all ages if you're thinking about getting this game, even though it's a pretty old game by today's standards. But if it's something you wanted to pick up for your kids because you still have a 360, maybe you haven't upgraded to a PS4 or an Xbox One, I'd say it's a safe bet that kids of any age, as long as they're able to play video games, will be safe playing Sonic Generations. And that's all me and the X-Man have for this review. I want to thank him for coming by the studio to give us his expert opinion. He is actually this household's resident Sonic expert. The man has played almost literally every Sonic game in creation. So I think you can take his word to the bank. If you are a Sonic fan and you're looking for a Sonic game to get into, I think X-Man would agree with me that he would give this game his seal of approval and his thumbs up. Would you agree with that, buddy boy? Yep. Okay, so he's shaking his head yes instead of actually saying it on the microphone. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me and the X-Man for this review. Hope you found it informative. Until next time, until all are one, it's me and the X-Man signing off, telling all of you guys peace and Godspeed.
And on the back of the case, it's 2 Sonics, 2 ways to play.
Amen.
Alloy 7.